Good morning, students. Myself, Dr. Amrita Katyayani from Vasanta College for Women, and we are going to study today Inquiry Training Model by Richard Suchman. Before getting into the detail of Inquiry Training Model, which is our topic of discussion today, let's first talk what is a model of teaching. A model of teaching can be defined as a plan or pattern that can be used to shape curriculums, to design instructional materials, and to guide instruction in the classroom and other subjects. Joyce and Weil, they searched a variety of strategies which had been developed earlier by different learning theorists and philosophers, and they designed more than 20 models of teaching. These models of teaching have helped in giving a direction to the teaching learning process, setting a standard for the teaching learning activities, and thus they have a great potential in achieving the aims and objectives of education. These models are classified into four families, and these four families are information processing models, social interaction models, personal models, and behavior modification models. Now let it gets into detail of each of these categories one by one first. The information processing models, as the name here signify, that these models emphasize on the information processing capability of the students and the ways they can improve their ability to master information. The information processing refers to the ways students handle the stimuli from the environment, sense the problems, generate concepts, and they find solutions, the ways in which they are able to find solutions to the problems. The models under this category are mainly Inquiry Training Model by Richard Suchman, which we are going to discuss today, Inductive Thinking Model, Concept Attainment Model, and Advanced Organizer Model. Then the next is the social interaction model. As the name suggests, that this focuses on the social relationships. That means mainly the models are emphasizing on the relationships of the individual with the society and with other persons. They focus on the processes by which the reality is socially negotiated. The models give priority to the improvement of the individual's ability to have interpersonal relationship with others and to engage themselves in the democratic processes so as they can work productively in the society. The models under this category are group investigation model, social inquiry model, role play model, and social interaction model, and etc. Then we have the personal models. The personal models, as the name suggests, they have orientation towards the person, the individual, and the development of the selfhood. These models, so that means they emphasize on the processes by which the individuals are able to identify and construct and organize their unique self, their unique reality. So they have a humanistic approach focusing on the individual, on the person. The models under this category are non-directive teaching model, awareness model, synectics model, classroom meeting model, and others. Then we have the behavior modification model. The behavior modification model are from the behaviorist approach. That means they are focusing on the modification of behavior. And so such models talks of sequencing and arranging of learning tasks in such a way so as to shape behavior, and that is mainly through manipulation of reinforcements. The models under this category are programmed instruction, relaxation model, anxiety reduction model, simulation model, and etc. Now, the topic of our discussion, that is inquiry training model. The inquiry training model, it comes under the information processing family. That means that this model basically talks of how the students will be able to process the informations which they gather from the environment, and they will be able to generate concepts or theories from it. The word here in this model is inquiry. Inquiry, we all know, means to question. So we can say inquiry here is the series of questions which is asked to find out the truth about any perplexing situation or event. This model was given by Richard Suchman, and he believed that man by nature is an inquiring creature. And since birth, a man, he or she, they engage in a continuous process of inquiry. And it is through this continuous process of inquiry with the environment that the child is able to learn. We know that there are children, when we see children, we find that they're always curious, and they ask different type of questions. Who, what, this, why this is happening, what is this, how this has happened. And these are the natural questions which comes in the minds of the child, as he or she is curious enough. And it is through those questions that a child is able to learn many things around himself or herself. So Suchman believes that whenever individuals are confronted with any puzzling situation, they are motivated to inquire, they are motivated to find solutions, and motivated to pursue meaning of it. So they try seek to understand whatever they encounter from the environment. And in order to understand puzzling situations, they are also encouraged to go for higher order thinking. If any situation is very puzzling, it's very perplexing, then the human beings have also the inclination to go for higher order thinking abilities, so that in order to find the solutions. So, how, according to Suchman, inquiry is generated? That whenever there is a perplexing situation, the questions are natural, that in a human mind, the questions arise. And we ask many types of questions. What is this? How this has happened? Why this has happened? Where? And it is through all these questions that we try to seek answers, we try to seek solutions to the questions which are there in our mind. And once we get the answer, that leads to the learning. Then that means that if students can be exposed to any perplexing situation, if they can be trained to inquire, if they can be trained to ask questions, then we can enhance their learning. So the Suchman has suggested the use of a perplexing situation, a confusing situation, a paradox, which should create confusion in the mind of the learner. And he called that perplexing situation as a discrepant event. And this discrepant event can be shown through in a form of a picture, a story, or a demonstration. And only thing is that event should be able to have some curiosity, able to generate some curiosity in the mind of the learner. And once the discrepant event is presented, it is that the learners become very curious. They're very motivated to learn, to find answer to that perplexing situation, to find solution of the perplexing situation which has been created. And that makes learning fun, and it leads to better learning. But it is, he says, that why it is that our students are not inquiring much in the classrooms. For that, he has asserted that there are various barriers to this inquiry, to this questioning in the mind of the learner. And these barriers can be in the form of language barrier, it can be in the form of social barrier. Like many times, the students may not ask because the child may feel that his or her question is silly enough. He may be bullied by others in the class. The teacher may reprimand him for asking such a silly question or asking something which is not adequate. And there can be language barriers, that many times students may feel that they are not able to formulate their query which is there in their mind, the curiosity which is there in their mind. And so due to these social and language and emotional barriers, the child is not asking enough questions in the classrooms. So he finally concludes and finds that it is because these barriers are there because our children have not been taught enough, they are not learned enough how to inquire. The process of inquiry, how to ask questions, how to raise query, is not being taught to them, and hence they could be taught this. So now we will try to define, according to Suchman, what is inquiry process. So he defines inquiry as a natural inborn process, the pursuit of some kind of new meaning or experience. It is a free, open, and it is a self-directed learning. He refers it as freedom and autonomy to pursue one's goals, freedom to transact with one's environment, and freedom to test one's own inferences. Suchman has presented a model as a frame of reference for discussing the inherent motivational factors in inquiry. And so, according to him, the process of generation of meaning involves three steps, which is first step is encounter, then organizer, and then meaning. So, what is encounter? Encounter is simply any form of sensory contact with the environment. Whatever we see, hear, or take from the environment, any stimuli which is there from the environment, he termed that as encounter. Then it is through the organizer that we can make our encounter meaningful. So organizer is the bridge between the encounter and making a meaning of the any encounter which we have got to observe. So organizer is simply whatever an individual knows, his prior knowledge, and that enables him to convert an encounter into a meaning. Then what is meaning? The last step, the meaning is assimilation of the new encounter. Whatever new information, the new stimuli which the student or the learner has seen, the assimilation of that new encounter within the framework of one's pre-existing knowledge, that means the prior knowledge. So it involves encounter, organizer, and meaning. And organizer is the bridge, yani whatever knowledge is there in the learner from previous experiences, the prior knowledge, that helps in assimilation of the any new encounter the learner comes across and helps in generating meaning out of it. So meaning is the result of interaction between the encounter and the ability to extract some form of inference or assertion. And this extraction is done with the help of organizer. So it is the relationship between this encountering, organizing, and generating meaning is what the whole model talks about, and it tries to. So this model establishes the relationship between the encountering and organizing, and finally in the process of generating meaning. And our meanings have, whatever meanings we generate, we get built up, that have great influence over the way in which we interpret, the manner in which we encounter any fresh information. Therefore, prior meanings are powerful organizers for generation of new meanings. So any prior information is very important, which we call as organizer for generating any new information, for new knowledge. Then he talked about the dynamics of the inquiry process. As you can see here, boxes, the central box is the thinking process. He talks about certain the processes that mainly sensing function, thinking function, action function, and the wanting function. And then on the top we have the box of knowledge and the encounter. So whatever encounter we get, the bridge is the knowledge, and then we make out meaning from that of the new encounter with the help of the knowledge which we have, the available organizer. And in that the functions which help that is the sensing function and the thinking processes of our mind and the acting function. So we shall now elaborate this model further. We say that what knowledge is the vast store of organizers available to the system of generating meaning. Thinking functions here involve all the wide range of cognitive processes like scanning, matching, comparing, synthesizing, judging, and different cognitive processes. Then the acting function works under the direction of the thinking function, and that is what that means whatever actions the individual takes in order to change the environment. These all are also under the influence of wanting function. Wanting function is basically motivation. That means this function gives function and direction to the thinking process. It is the motivation which helps us to think and to act, and through that any new meaning is generated. Then it talks about the theoretical assumptions underlying the inquiry training model. Suchman said that people inquire naturally when they are puzzled. They can become conscious of, and they can learn to analyze their thinking strategies. So it is a natural ability of the learners to inquire, and whenever there is any puzzling, it is natural that they will inquire, and they can be made conscious of, they can be made to learn to analyze their own thinking processes. And then he talks that new strategies of thinking can be taught directly, and that can be added to the students' existing ones. Then it is through cooperative learning, like discussion and other group learning processes, the thinking can be enriched, and it helps students learn about the tentative nature of emergent knowledge. Joyce and Field, in any model, we know that there are the main part is the first model. We talk about its objectives, and then we talk about the syntax, and then the social system. So here in the inquiry training model, the main objectives, as the Joyce and Wheel has termed it as effects. So the main effects of this model can be categorized into instructional effects and nurturant effects. The instructional effects here are the direct outcomes, and so they are referred as the main objectives. And nurturant effects are those that are implicit in the learning environment, in the social system of the model, and hence they are referred as the subsidiary objectives. So, according to this inquiry training model, the general aim of this model is to allow students experience the creation of new knowledge and develop the intellectual ability. It is mainly aims to develop the intellectual ability and the skill of the learner to raise questions, and so as to reach out answers which stemming out from their curiosity. So emphasis is on becoming aware and mastering the inquiry process, and not on the content and explanation of any. The focus of this model is not on the content. The model emphasizes on making the learner aware of their inquiry process and help them master the inquiry process. So this picture depicts, the model tries to depict what are the instructional and nurturing effects of the inquiry training model. The main effects, the main aim are the development of scientific process skills, which are denoted here with red color, and the strategies for critical inquiry. And the nurturing effects are the spirit of creativity, autonomy, ambiguity, and tentative nature of knowledge. We shall discuss these also one by one. Then as we know, the main objectives of this inquiry training model is to help develop the inquiry process skills, means the processes of inquiry. So what are the processes of inquiry, which are also called as science processes, like observation, collection of data, formulation of hypotheses, identification of variables, controlling of variables, drawing conclusions, making predictions and inferences. So this model focuses on development of these processes skills, the inquiry processes skills. And then the second also is to develop the strategies of critical inquiry. That means how to do a critical inquiry, how to think critically, reflect on any problem, and come to the solution of the problem. So these are the main objectives, and along with that, the subsidiary objectives here, as we find that here the learner, they themselves is in the position of an inquirer, of a discoverer. So definitely the objective here, secondary objective, is to develop independence of the learner, autonomy of the learner to learn as per their own pace, as per their own understanding. Then tolerance of ambiguity, because whenever we inquire, there is no fixed, we believe that in inquiry there is no absolute truth, there is no absolute solution of the problem. There can be many problems can have many solutions. So this tolerance of to make the learner aware of the tolerance of ambiguity and the very tentative nature of knowledge. Knowledge is not absolute. So these are its subsidiary objectives. Then now the second part of any model is the syntax, the main structure of the model. This syntax of the model can be presented in 5 phases. That is the encounter with the problem, data gathering verification, then data gathering experimentation, formulation of explanation, and finally the analysis of the inquiry process. So these are the 5 steps. So what is there in the encounter? The encounter is simply meaning that in this step the teacher presents the puzzling situation, the discrepant event. The teacher explains, and along with that, presenting the discrepant event, the teacher here also explains the procedures that has to be followed during the whole inquiry process. Then we have the data gathering verification. That means here the students, they gather information about the puzzling event, the discrepant event, through their observations and experiences. They try to verify the nature of objects, the nature of the situation around. They try to verify the occurrence of the problem situation, and for this verification the students are encouraged to ask questions, and the teacher here helps the students in the verification by answering their questions. But it is the general rule over here is that the students can ask the teacher questions, only a single question they can ask, and that those questions should be in such a form so as they can be answered only in yes or no response. So in this process the open-ended questions are avoided. The students are not allowed to put open-ended questions, so that the teacher do not explain the whole phenomena on their own. They only help them to verify the object, verify the situation, verify the problem, and in that verification they can ask questions. And the number of questions is also limited. They can ask only one question at a time, and that also has to be a closed question, which the teacher will help by only answering yes, no. Then the third phase is the experimentation. So this is experimentation, means that the students, they can introduce new element into the situation to see the effect. That is what we do in experimentation. And experimentation here can be done in way of 2 ways: the exploration and direct testing. Exploration means when we just explore on any phenomena or event, which necessarily is not guided by a hypothesis. Whereas in direct testing, the students try out a hypothesis. They formulate a hypothesis, which is generally formulated in the form of if-then statement, and then the students try to select the situation around, do the experimentation in order to verify the hypothesis which they have formulated. Then the fourth phase, finally they come to the formulation of explanation. Finally, the teacher calls on the students to formulate the explanation. The students, what they do here, they whatever informations that they have gathered through verification and experimentation of the earlier steps, they extract those informations, the data gathered from earlier steps, and then they try to explain the problem as best as they can. In other words, this is the stage of theory building, theory formulation. They try to come up to a generalization with the help of verification and experimentation which they have done, or the solution, or theory formation of the solution of the problem or the puzzling situation which was presented to them. Then the final step is the analysis. The last step is here. Here the main focus is not on the solution. The main focus here is on the analysis of the inquiry. How the students went about to search the solution of the problem is more important rather than what is the solution of the problem. So what is the solution of problem is the secondary importance. Major importance is how the problem was searched and the solution was tried to find out. So here the students, they are asked to analyze their pattern of inquiry. The students try to analyze their own questions, and they try to analyze how some of their questions led them to the answers, led them to the explanation of the problem, and how some of the questions did not help them and it just deviated them. So in the end, the teacher, the last step, the teacher also recapitulates the process of inquiry. Finally, the procedure can be summarized that in the inquiry training model, a discrepant event is introduced. That means a puzzling situation is introduced which challenges the students to provide the theory, to provide explanation. Then the students here are encouraged to ask questions to verify in order to get the data, and then the students here can ask questions only which need to be answered in yes or no response. The teacher responds to these questions and they help students to gather data, and they also guide students to clarify as and when needed. The teacher here asks students to finally they ask them to formalize the data and come up with an explanation, formulate an explanation. Then that means the students solve the problem on their own with the informations which they have gathered from experimentation and verification. Finally, in the end, the teacher guides them to analyze their thinking pattern, their questioning patterns, and then decide how the information was helpful or misleading in finding the solution. So now we can summarize that the inquiry training model is the inquiry strategy that presents a puzzling problem, a discrepant event, and here then the students are instructed to propose hypotheses in order to explain that situation, that problem, and by then they are encouraged to ask questions in such a way so as they are answered only in yes no type. And in this process, the model facilitates students to think through an event, through any problem, and ask questions and try to find solutions. So here the students, they become active. They are active learner here. The students have an active role and they are encouraged to apply their higher order thinking skills. They apply their thinking skills, problem solving ability, critical thinking, reflective thinking. And it also supports the belief that learning takes place when learners are free. The learners have the freedom, and they have autonomy. They are autonomous, and they go for directive learning when they are self-directed learners. In this the model inquiry training model, we see that gives opportunities to the learner to observe on their own, to explore on their own, to raise question, to inquiry on their own. So here the learner is put as a discoverer who discovers, and then through their discovery, the inquiry process, they build their understanding, they construct their theory, they construct their knowledge. So they have the freedom to think here, to question, to reflect, to interact, and then develop their own conceptual understanding. So learners are also given opportunity to discuss. They discuss with each other. They discuss with the problem, their ideas freely with the teacher. Do the probing, do the experimentation, and do problem solving activities, which encourages them to reflect, to question. And so their higher order thinking abilities can be developed through this model. A deeper understanding can be developed, and hence this model is very helpful in development of critical thinking, reflective thinking, problem solving abilities. This model teaches students the process of investigation. it mainly makes them train how to do the investigation. This model takes the students to procedures like a researcher. It is like a mini research in which the students themselves organize, collect data, organize their knowledge, and generate principles and or theory out of it. So it helps them to establish their own facts, build their own concepts, and generate explanations or theories based upon their own discovery, upon their own inquiry. So in science teaching, we know that main purpose of science teaching today is not mainly inquiring of scientific knowledge. The science means to construct the scientific knowledge, which means to develop the scientific skills, to develop the skill of problem solving. And in that way, today, as the approach has changed, it is mainly that today the science focuses on development of science processes, skills, the skills of scientific skills of observation, problem solving, recording, drawing inference, formulating hypotheses. So this model is today is an ideal model for as it fulfills that purpose, the science process purpose of the purpose today, which is the main focus today in the teaching learning of science. So this model can be termed as the ideal model for the teaching learning of science. So that, thank you, that was all about the inquiry model by Richard Suchman. And if you have any queries, you are most welcome to put those queries in the comments. Thank you once again.